I especially remember listening to in the car, listening to Greatest Hits, listening to the third disc of tracks, Born in the USA, listening to the Live in New York City album, and then once The Rising came out, especially being from Long Island, that was like all we listened to for a very long time. So that album has like a big significance to basically everyone from who was affected by 9/11.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me today is a new fan, a new friend, Timothy Berger. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell my audience a little about yourself.
So I'm from Long Island originally. I live in Manhattan now. I went to Notre Dame for my undergrad and graduated in May of 2019. I had a great experience, grateful for the education I got, the friends I made. And I've been a Bruce fan basically as long as I can remember. And he's been such an important part of my life. So thrilled to be here and to talk about him.
You had sent an email saying that you had listened to a couple episodes and wanted to share your story. So I was thrilled we could meet. What did you study at Notre Dame?
So I studied finance and political science.
Okay, very nice.
And I work in finance now.
Okay, good. Yeah. How's the pandemic treating you?
It's been interesting. So I actually switched jobs during it. I switched jobs in September, and I'm loving my new job. So very grateful for the experience I'm having there. And I'm lucky. I'm the only one of my family who has yet to get the virus. Both my younger siblings and parents got it actually like right before Christmas. So I wound up going to spend it with my grandma, which actually wound up being a blessing. So, but yeah, very lucky that I've gotten through the pandemic so far unscathed. And yeah, it's been an interesting experience, especially being in New York where things are so bad and this spring. But fortunately, like even though case counts are higher, I think hospitalizations and deaths are not as bad as they were.
Yeah. So are you working from home?
Yeah, I am. I have been the whole pandemic, and it seems like we will be at least until things are pretty at a good level in terms of vaccination rates and new cases.
Yeah. How is your and so your family and siblings are fine now?
Yeah, everyone got through it pretty well. I think actually the one who had it worse is probably my little brother who's 17.
Wow.
But even with him, it wasn't too bad. It was just like, a bad case of the flu. But yeah, so all of them, got through it no problem. So very, very grateful for that.
Well, good. Well, Timothy, we always like to start at the beginning. So talk about growing up. Where did you grow up? You said Long Island?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so my dad's from Jersey.
Okay.
So, Bruce is always a big part of his life. I think he's seen him probably close to 100 times.
Okay.
And, some of my most vivid memories from being like a real little kid, like, 3, 4, and 5, or, all about Bruce. Like I especially remember listening to, in the car, listening to Greatest Hits, listening to the third disc of tracks, listening to Born in the USA, listening to the Live in New York City album. And then once The Rising came out, especially being from Long Island, that was like all we listened to for a very long time. So that, album has like a big significance to, basically everyone from who was affected by 9/11.
So I'm looking. Disc 3 is one of my favorite discs. I love My Love Will Not Let You Down, Lion's Den, Rock Away Other Days. So The Wish is on there. Yeah, that's a pretty decent.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid CD.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think Frankie on that. That to me is, I think, one of my favorite Bruce songs, and I think flies in the radar. I mean, I've never seen him do that one live, but I've seen videos of him do it on YouTube, and you know, like I feel like he always introduces it by saying, like, I feel like we should do this more often.
Yeah.
Because like it really is a great song. But so yeah, so like I remember listening to the third disc like as a kid, but never like really got into tracks, I guess, until probably college. But you know, discovering that side of his music, that you know he you know, kept these songs on the shelf when you know, like some of really really good songs that like he definitely could have included on albums if he, you know, wanted to. I just thought that was, you know, such an interesting thing, an impressive thing about him as an artist.
So, Timothy, one of the questions I always ask is if you can articulate what about Bruce's music spoke to you. But in your case, you just grew up with this, right? It was just it was in the atmosphere you breathe.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it was like that's I guess, like, you know, an interesting thing that, you know, like obviously like when you're like a 4-year-old kid, like it's kind of hard for it to have meaning. But I guess like the first time that I really felt that it had significance was when I was, you know, I guess The Rising came out in 2002, so I was 5 in 2002. And you know, I don't remember the day of 9/11. I was 4 when it happened. But I, like, you know, I guess it's kind of hard, and like didn't fully understand it even, you know, in the aftermath. But like, you know, like my dad's best friend died in the towers. Like a lot of people in my town were lost. So, you know, but like didn't really understand it. But then when The Rising came out, and like, you know, I saw like the effect it had on my parents, and, you know, my extended family too, of just like, you know, just the hope that it brought, you know, so that, you know, really, like, you know, seeing it through that lens, like, had a big impact on me. And then I guess, like, you know, obviously, like, he has such a broad catalog of music and so many different songs with so many different meanings. But I guess, like, the one common thread to all of it has just been, like, it's such an important bond for not only my immediate family, but my extended family too. Like, my mom's one of 5, and all 4 of her siblings, and their spouses, and, you know, all my cousins, like, are all love Bruce. So like at all of our family parties, I was listening to him. And then like, it's also been like a big thing for me and a lot of my friends, like both friends that were into him before we met, and then friends that I got into him. So that's, you know, been, you know, like such an important, it's been such an important part of a lot of personal relationships, which, you know, it's been great. And like, you know, me and my Uncle Matt always joke, every time we listen to him, we're always like, we did not deserve him. You know, sometimes I feel that way. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
Like when you listen to, like, you know, I guess, I can't think of one off the top of my head, just like, but like a song like my Uncle Matt loves The Ties That Bind.
Okay.
And just like, yeah, that's such a good song. And, like it's so different than a, you know, like a Backstreets.
Yeah.
And like he can say so many different things in so many different songs.
So what I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about, Timothy, is that, you know, you've grown up with this music, and it's kind of just, you know, just it's the background of your family. But then did you go exploring things yourself? Like, did you pick up other albums and go explore, and kind of, did you go on your own personal Springsteen journey?
Yeah, definitely. So like that was, I guess, like where I started. And then I guess, like, you know, once, you know, I discovered iTunes, and eventually Spotify, was able to branch out. Like, I really was, like, as I said earlier, I wasn't really familiar with tracks, and also wasn't familiar with like a lot of his solo albums, like Nebraska. And I honestly think that and Tunnel of Love The latter especially. Like I really discovered that, toward the end of my college years.
Yeah.
And just kind of, had glossed over it. But that is one of the albums that, just every song on that album, like so intense, especially like, the stuff he was going through with his marriage.
Yes.
And, like the popular songs on it, like the title track and, are great, but then like the deeper cuts, like I think One Step Up, like the line "Bird on a wire outside my motel room, he ain't singing," like, just intense.
I had a guy a couple of years ago on the podcast, and he said he believed you couldn't appreciate Ton of Love till you've either had your heart broken a couple of times or you've lived some years in a marriage. And I do think it is it's a different kind of album, especially after Born in the USA. You go Ton of Love, a totally shift of what he's trying to tell. And it is a personal album. So is it a family affair when he's touring?
So I've seen him 7 times. Fortunately, the first time I went was on the Rising tour when I was, I think, either 5 or 6.
Oh, how fun.
I think it was the summer of 2003, so I would have been 6. I saw him at Giant Stadium, and I vaguely remember that, but I remember it being great. And then I saw him again on the Magic tour when I was probably 11, also at Giant Stadium. I saw him on the Working on a Dream tour at the Coliseum when I was 12. I saw him at the Garden, and all those times with my dad. And then on the Wrecking Ball tour, I went see him at the Garden with like my entire extended family. And it was funny because we were taking the Long Island Railroad in, and we had 2 blocks of tickets. So like we were trying to figure out who's going to sit with whom. And someone eventually figured out, like, I think it was maybe 4 and 6. And someone figured out, like, there are 4 guys and 6 girls. So we did guys and girls. So I was with, like, my dad and my uncles. And it was so much fun. And at that, so I know you mentioned you love Lions Den off of Track Disc 3. And he played that at,
wow.
That concert, which you'd never expect. And,
no, that would, that's on my checklist, as we're going to talk a little bit of songs you're chasing. That would be on my checklist of rarities I'd want to hear. So Timothy, what is the first new album that you you embraced? Like I'm thinking when Magic comes out, you may be excited because your dad's excited there's a new album, right? And so you're, good, you're enjoying that. But can you think of what album of when Bruce released that you kind of independently of your family was just excited to pick up and listen to and enjoy?
I would probably say, I guess it'd be Working on a Dream.
Okay.
Either that or Wrecking Ball.
Okay.
Because I definitely remember to what you were saying. I definitely remember Magic being more like as you were saying, like a family affair. It was more like my dad was like, "Oh, Bruce's new album," like. But yeah, so I definitely remember that for Working on a Dream and Wrecking Ball. And Working on a Dream, don't get me wrong, I like the album and I think there's some good songs on it. I liked it a lot more 11 years ago or 12 years ago now, I guess, 2009, than I do now. I think there are some good songs on it. And Wrecking Ball, I feel like, has a little bit more staying power.
I think so. I think that's a fair segment.
I think Rocky Ground's a really, really good song. I think We Take Care of Our Own's a good one. A couple other good ones on that. But honestly, I thought Letter to You, so many good songs on that. Ghosts, that song gets me going. I love that song. I was talking to one of my friends and I was like, I haven't sat down with a pen and paper but I was like, I think if I were, like, it would probably be in, like, I don't know, my top 30 or 40, like, Springsteen songs, period. Like, I love that song.
Yeah.
And the thing that I loved about that album was, like, he took some songs, like If I Were the Priest and Song for Orphans, they're like almost 50 years old.
Yeah.
And then he's like, taking these new songs that he just wrote. And it doesn't, like, the older ones don't necessarily stick out like a sore thumb.
Right.
And I really liked, like, both the older songs on that and the new ones.
Yeah.
And I liked Western Stars a lot too. Like my uncle Matt, who I mentioned previously, like sometimes he's like that might be my favorite Springsteen album, which,
yeah,
I mean, I don't agree with, but I really enjoyed that. And,
yeah,
it wasn't really something, you'd expect from him. But, I guess that goes to what I was saying earlier, that, he just has a lot. Like, later in high school, I, kind of discovered American folk music, like got into Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan. And I guess, like, backtracked and then realized, like, oh, Springsteen had an album of Pete Seeger songs.
yeah.
And, like, like super different than like what he had done. But I love the Seeger sessions.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm thinking, my first show was a Rising show too.
Mm-hmm.
I was
I remember hearing that.
I was a few years older than you, and so when Devils and Dust came out, I played that CD over and over and over again, and then so when I had tickets to go see the Devils and Dust tour, I was ready. I felt like I'd done my homework. I was ready. Whatever songs he played from Devils and Dust, I'm going to be there. So I think similar to you saying about working on a dream, at the time I loved Devils and Dust a lot more than I do now. I still like a lot of the songs on there, but it had such an emotional attachment to me because it was the first kind of one that was fresh to me. That I had, this was not something everyone else had heard already. I was learning it at the same time as everyone else.
Yeah.
And falling in love with those songs at the same time as everyone else. Yeah. So
those songs, yeah. What are, because I like that. I mean, it's not my favorite, but I do think there are some great songs on it. What are some of your favorite songs off that one?
So I love Long Time Coming.
That's a great song.
Yeah. I actually, in one of the latest archive releases, there's a whole band version of Devils and Dust, and that was really cool to hear.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think it was the St. Paul, Minnesota show that they released on the Wrecking Ball tour. They did a full band version of Devils and Dust. I really like Maria's Bed. Just that joy of like, and I'm going to be, so yeah, I think those are pretty good. And I think it's interesting because I was expecting kind of Nebraska again, but there actually is some arrangements and other instruments on Devils and Dust, not just, because you'd always heard, and when you get Nebraska the first time, right, it's just him and his guitar basically. And Devils and Dust had a little bit more things to it. Yeah, I totally agree.
I love Jesus Was an Only Son.
Yes, and that's the one I'm not thinking about.
It's an intense song. Especially as someone who went to Notre Dame, and I went to the high school I went to, Chaminade was run by the Society of Mary. So, I've always had a, strong devotion to the Blessed Mother, and, just that picture he paints is, an intense one.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe I forgot about that one. It is, and hearing him talk the story, right, about how it's the humanity, him talking about, well, I could buy that little bar in, at Galilee, and Mary could 10 bar on the weekends, or, I could 10 bars, and I could leave the preaching for the weekends, and just this idea that Jesus being tempted in, I know Scorsese did write The Last Temptation of Christ, a film all about Christ being tempted to go live a human life. And I think Bruce did that better in that song, that little talk. I don't know if you've seen it, like in Storytellers, when he talks about that, he shares that
I
story.
haven't seen that, no.
Yeah,
But
you should. You would really appreciate it because it talks about the humanity of how Jesus would look at that. Yeah,
sorry, my headphones just disconnected.
that's okay. Can you hear now?
Now?
How about it now?
But now. Oh yeah, I got you now.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. All right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Make a note that edit. Okay. So you already mentioned one story from the road where you guys and the gals. Other stories about shows?
I guess so. The other one that I'd have to say, which is from that one, is like, so my uncle Matt came up from Philly, and we were like, going through like setlist.com or whoever tracks it.
Yeah.
And like, almost every show before he was opening with either Wrecking Ball or We Take Care of Our Own.
Right.
So we're like, discussing like which one do you think it's going to be, and then we get there and he opens with Badlands. And like, to me, like if you were to, she was 300 some odd songs, and if you were to ask me to pick one that I'd want to see him open with, I think it's Badlands every day of the week. And that's just, such a great way to start out a show. And then right before, so we went to dinner in the city right before the concert. My Uncle Joe, stopped everyone and made an announcement. He was like, I just want to let everybody know that if he plays Jungleland tonight, I'm going to jump to my death. I will have no reason to continue living. And like, he's like a very serious guy, but like that's his sense of humor. So I always like think about that, and that always makes me laugh.
Did you get Jungleland that night?
No, we didn't. So I guess to
that's why
jump on your
alive.
question.
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite song.
Yeah,
and I've never at all seven. I've never seen it. So
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a Badlands story for you. So we're driving down to go to, I can't remember if it was Magic or Working on the Dream. One of the shows, one of them was in Dallas, the other one was in Houston. Okay, he went to either Houston or Dallas. And so I can't remember which it was, and I could look it up if we need to. But the point of the story, it's not important, but we're driving to Houston. And so one of my best friends, Sam, who is my Springsteen buddy, right? We go to lunch. Back when we worked together, we went to lunch every day. E Street Radio's on the radio. He and I now then haven't worked in the same company probably 5-6 years, and we still meet either every week or every other week for lunch. So just truly one of my best friends. And so we're driving down in Houston, Dallas to Houston, about a 4-hour drive. So we're driving, and it's a boring drive. It's just straight 45, straight down. And so we've got E Street Radio, and Sam starts complaining about, okay, they say it's random, but there are songs you just hear all the frickin' time. Like, I can't believe how often we have to hear Badlands on this rotation. I'm tired of hearing Badlands. And like, so they do a live show and they're doing a live version of Badlands. He's like, damn it, I'm so tired of Badlands. So we get to the Houston arena. We get, we have a good meal together. We get there, we settled in, we got our seats plenty of time. Darkness, band comes out, and they break into Badlands. And Sam looks at me like, really? You're effing kidding me. And I'm just rolling because like the whole audience is like, yes, Badlands, yes. And he's like, really? What are you were taunting me, Springsteen. So we still joke about that all the time. So that's great. You've talked a little bit about it, but what are albums and songs that mean to you. You go Jungerland. We're going to talk in a little bit about songs you're chasing, but you're getting through life, and are there songs and albums that you go to routinely to help you cope with things?
So I remember listening to Tunnel of Love, which is like an intense album and like kind of depressing at points, but I like would, like if it were like a particularly late night at work, I remember throwing that on. I guess it's not necessarily the most uplifting, but I guess, and I guess like, you were saying, if you really want to understand it, you should have lived through a tough marriage or a couple broken hearts, neither of which I have lived through. But I guess like, I got the feeling like, like he, is saying like, sometimes things aren't going the way you want them to go, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Trying to think of like particular, like, I know like in the song, when you're alone, he says, there are things that I'll not get, and you don't even see coming, and send you crying like a baby back home, which I know was directed at the person in his relationship. It's not talking about it. He's not speaking in the second person, but I kind of like, kind of feel like that, like, I just love Backstreets. I guess like, that isn't like, it doesn't like, it's not an experience that I've lived through, like, a heartbreak on the Jersey Shore. Yeah. But I love like the old, like the late 70s live versions of it when he do that like Sad Eyes interlude with like maybe parts of what would become Drive All Night. Mary's Place, I love, like, I guess that goes back to, like, I believe she, she's the queen of heaven. Like, that's where we'll hope to go one day.
That's one of the songs that I really loved, Mary's Place. And, but I had not really, when I saw the Rising tour, I had not listened to the album over and over again. And so that's one of the things I regret is I've seen it from my first show, but I would love to see it again. I would love just to appreciate Mary's Place again, the whole long and introducing the band, everything. When I hear that, either hear it on YouTube or I'm hear it like on an archive, I'm like, oh man, I'd love to experience that.
Yeah. So I have gotten to see that a couple times live.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's such a fun one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, he's got so many great, and then obviously like Born to Run's kind of like my staple.
Sure.
Like listen to that all the time. Yeah. As I'm sure it is for most people. Like love Wild Innocent, love Darkness, The River. Honestly, like everything.
You've talked a little bit about Letter to You, but when you what were your thoughts when you heard he was going to put out a new album?
I was surprised. Like, partly it was like, just like, I was like, he did just like, releasing it like a year ago.
Right.
And what High Hopes came out in 2014. Like that was like 5 years. Like I really wasn't expecting it. And then, when you hear the stories about how he and the band recorded it in 5 days, it was surprising. And, I hear he says, like, he has a surprise in store this year. It's not touring, which I think probably makes sense. Like,
sure,
I think
absolutely.
Even if he wanted to, probably wouldn't be happening anyway. And, everyone's saying like, is it Tracks too?
Yeah.
But I tweeted this, but I was like, should we rule out that it's not a new album? Like, I was like, no one would have expected him to put Letter to You out, but like, I mean, I hope the guy lives forever, but unless he figures something out, it comes for all of us at one point. And I think, he probably knows, like, he's getting to, he's over 70 now. And I feel like, I like, if he wants to put material out, he can, and maybe he is, has something in the works, because they recorded, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they recorded Letter to You in November of 2019.
Yes, they
did. So they released it almost a year after they released it almost a year after they recorded it. So I feel like it's, not unreasonable to, maybe it is unreasonable, but I feel like it's not outlandish. So.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think the smart money would be on a new album, but I also don't think it's totally crazy. Because you think about it, right? Nebraska was just him, a guitar, and, a tape recorder. And so he certainly has more than that. And they have been in lockdown, all this time. So who's not to say he didn't have a set of songs that was kind of speaking to him, and he played with them April, May, June, this during this lockdown, in between doing, the radio shows, and he might surprise us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big money, you're right, because he has mentioned, he has flat said that yes, track two. I mean, he's mentioned going tracks two. I know a lot of people think of Born in the USA, box set to kind of cover
Mm-hmm.
that would be interesting. I don't know. It is idea to think how cool. I don't think it'll be live part two, because that's what the archive sets have been. But that, who knows what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
And I mean, it'll be good regardless of what it is, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. So what do you think, what's the future for you and your fandom? What do you, besides wanting to see him in 2022, what do you think? Do you picture finding a significant other, having them, forcing them to listen to Bruce, and raising little kids to, like a third generation Springsteen family,
I would hope so. Like I remember I was talking to, some of my high school friends, and we were saying like how exciting it would be to, be able to like introduce a little kid to Springsteen and, brainwash them from the early days, like my parents did to me.
Absolutely.
And for which I'm very grateful. Just cause it's, it's such a powerful body of music. And I think, so I don't know if the significant other would have to be brainwashed into the Springsteen fandom, or if she already would be a fan, but I would hope she would at least enjoy it and tolerate mine.
Are you able to separate your love of Bruce and his music away from your family, because it has been such a big part of your life?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I think it's at the point, like probably when I got to high school, I guess, like to your earlier question, like, so as I got through high school, and I guess when I really started to get into other music, like the first band that I seriously got into aside from Bruce is the Beatles, and that was when I was in 7th grade. And then, it's funny because and then like throughout high school, I got into a bunch of different stuff, like, got into Dylan, eventually wound up getting into the Beach Boys, and like, I guess by default, like, you get into Phil Spector and stuff like that, and then got into Roy Orbison, and then I stumbled upon the quote. I don't know if Bruce said this about the album or if someone said it about him, but I think he said, I made Born to Run, I wanted it to sound like it was produced by Phil Spector with lyrics written by Bob Dylan and sung by Roy Orbison.
Right.
And, after like, seeing what all that music is like, and then I think a critic said this, so it's not but it's like, like it doesn't sound like it was produced by, like it doesn't like sound like it was written by Dylan, and Bruce doesn't sound like Roy Orbison, but it's something incredible, like, nonetheless, and he uniquely made something incredible.
Yeah, and I do think that's kind of cool, his thought process, right? To think of that and to go there. And he wears his influences well, where he doesn't copy them. He kind of takes them and makes them his own. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you've mentioned already Jungle Land is one you're chasing. What are other songs that you have not got to hear live that you want to hear?
I haven't seen Incident on 57th Street live. I love that song.
Okay.
I'd love to see that live. And then the added bonus would be seeing Rosalita right after it.
Yes.
Which, that's like a crown jewel. Trying to think of what else. I'd love to see Thundercrack live. I think that'd be a great live one.
I would love that too.
But it is a great, I've seen like the videos, but, I've never seen it in person. And then I mentioned this earlier, but Frankie, I'd love to see live.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I like I'd love to see Ghost live, like the next time he
Yeah.
tours, and like
Yeah.
a bunch of the songs off the new album, and even like a couple from Western Stars.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think we're all really desperate to hear that. I was convinced that Burning Train is the perfect song to set off the set. Like I could just picture them, walking on stage and going that. But then after watching Saturday Night Live, I could see Ghosts would be a great way to kick it
so
off.
I feel bad saying this. I didn't think it was that good.
Okay.
The Saturday Night Live performance, which like I feel bad saying that. And it's like, look, it's like it's like they haven't toured as a band since what 2014, maybe 2015. So it's been 6 years. And like and it's like that's not like the kind of crowd they used to play in front of. And it's like, don't get me wrong, like I'm sure like come 12 months from now when they're touring in 2022, like it's gonna knock all of our socks off. But yeah, no, I do think I think Ghost is like the perfect song to open, especially just that I'm alive after everything we've been through for what is probably going to wind up being 18 months of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there were, they hadn't rehearsed that much, and I think his voice was a little off on the first song, and then by the middle it was better. I get it. I also think it's live, and I don't know how well the sound is coming through my TV, even though I have a surround sound. Yeah, no, I get it. And that's not necessarily, it no matter how much you love them and love the music, you can have that. Um, there have been times when we've listened to the archive and we go like, maybe he wasn't the strongest voice that night. It's so yeah, I think that's perfectly acceptable. So okay, Timothy, what haven't I asked you that I should
have? I did think about this one.
Okay.
So what I think is an interesting question is, what song that isn't his would you want him to play? Because one thing that I love watching is him do covers of other artists.
Oh, that's a great question. So do you have a kind of list of 2 or 3 covers you'd love to hear?
So I think that he would do a great I have one, but I forgot it. I had like a specific one.
Okay.
I love his cover of Heat Wave by Martha and the Vandellas. I think I love that song. I love his cover of You Love to Take Me Higher and Higher. I love Higher Love by Steve Winwood. I think that'd be
that would be
fun
cool.
Fun to hear him do. I'm a big Michael McDonald yacht rock guy, so I'm sure he could do a good What a Fool Believes if he wanted to.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I think that would be funny. What about you?
Well, I got to hear him do Jump when he was here in Dallas, which I did not expect to hear that at all. And when he did that, I was amazed. I loved when he did Staying Alive, when he was in Australia. That was such a great version. And I had a guy on the show that's a big Bee Gees fan, and he said that version is what he pictures, that if they weren't doing it for the movie, that would be kind of more of a version that the band would have done, Bruce's style. I'm very clear. The number one cover I want to hear is Jolie Blanc, because I grew up in Louisiana. My college, I went to school at McNeese State University, and that's our fight song. That was the band played Jolie Blanc every time the Cowboys scored a touchdown. And it's a totally different style than what Bruce is, so it doesn't even sound like his version of Jolie Blanc, but it is Jolie Blanc. And so I know a lot. I've had people pick at me like, really, you'd waste a wish on but I would, if I got asked, if Bruce said, you could have one, it would probably be Better Days, because that's something that's
a great song. I remember you talking about the
yeah,
significance that
yeah,
has to you. Yeah.
But if I had two choices, it'd be Better Days and Jolie Blanc. So yeah, that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. Good. Well, hey, this has been fun, but we got to get to the Mary question before I let you go. So
I think I'll let you introduce it. Yeah.
okay. So yeah, if you are not a normal listener to the show, but you're a friend of Timothy's and you're listening to hear him share his love of Bruce, let me catch you up what the Mary question is. Jay Armstrong is a honors English teacher. He just recently retired in the Philadelphia area. And he would, every year, he would have his seniors in the English class, honors English class, break down Thunder Road. They would talk about the imagery of the song. They'd use the lyrics. They talk about the themes that Bruce is exploring. And at the end of the 2 days, Jay would look at his class and go, "Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?" So, Timothy, that's your question.
I think the answer is a definite yes.
Okay.
Like, especially like when you look at the album, and I think the way it's structured, like, like I said, like, Jungle Land is obviously about New York City. And the first 6 songs kind of give off a more Jersey vibe, and then meeting across the river, going across the Hudson to the city. And I think, like, a lot of what the songs on Born to Run express are, a theme of escape and, thinking there's something better out there and I can get it, this town rips the bones off your back. It's a death trap. This suicide rap. I got to get out while I'm young. Like, that feeling of, there's something else out there and I'm going to seize life by it and get out. So I think, and, the first time I heard this, I thought an interesting thing is, so when at the beginning of Jungle Land, when the Magic Rat and the Barefoot Girl drive the sleep machine over the Jersey state line, is that the singer of Thunder Road and Mary?
Very interesting point. Yeah.
Which I don't think it necessarily is, but, and then I think, like, what happens in Jungle Land is, like, it doesn't, they at the end, they wind up wounded, not even dead. Like, there's like a lot of despair at the end. And I think so part of what the album is saying is, like, there is, like, that big theme of escape and trying to get to something better in life. But then I think Jungle Land kind of says, sometimes there's a darker side to that. And sometimes things don't always go the way we plan them to, even if we get to where we're trying to get to. Which I guess, like, especially when you think of, like, what happened to Bruce after Born to Run, like, that the struggles he was in between that and between that and Darkness. So yeah, I think she definitely gets in the car, but I think that the question of whether or not things go well after that is still up in the air, and the answer to that is maybe not. But I think she definitely gets in the car.
Very nice. Good answer. Good. I appreciate that. I like that. A lot of thought. Good job. So what's next for you? You started a new gig. You're trying to, get through the pandemic. What's next for you, Timothy?
So I'm actually, come Saturday, I'm going to Denver for a couple weeks, just, work remotely from there.
Okay.
Hang out with some friends. So that's going to be fun. We're going to go skiing. And, I guess, nothing I try to take things one day at a time. New job's going great. Really
Good.
liking it. Good team, learning a lot. And, I guess just getting ready for, when things can return to normal. Like my grandma's renting a house on Fire Island for a month during the summer. So I think we'll probably have some sort of family reunion there. And so I mentioned my Uncle Joe and my Uncle Matt, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my mom's other siblings, and I'm sure I'd get threatening texts. So I'll do that now. But my Uncle Bob, who I've grown very close with over the years, in addition to the rest of my mom's siblings, introduced me to this great Long Island cover band called Rich Mahogany.
Okay.
So for any listeners that are from the New York area, definitely check them out. And they do a good amount of Bruce, but like they're just a great party band. Like they play on Fire Island, so
Oh,
I'll
how
probably try to
fun.
go with him. Yeah. And then my cousin Claire, who's my Aunt Lori, who's also my godmother. My cousin Claire lives a block away, so hopefully my Aunt Lori, who's my mom's older sister and the fifth of the five that my mom is one of.
Yeah.
I'll probably try to get dinner with her soon. To the next time she's in the city visiting Claire. So I mentioned all four of them, so I'm in the
Good. You're
clear.
covered.
Yeah.
So 2022, Bruce is touring. There in Madison Square Garden or at at MetLife. There will be a burger contingent, right?
Almost
Everyone will
definitely.
go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Because when you have probably, I don't know, however many 15 people all online at once, I think someone's bound to get through and be able to order a block of them. So, but yeah, like that, because I got to see him on the River tour. I went twice alone in college. I couldn't get anyone to go with me to see him at the United Center in Chicago. And then I was lucky enough to like get tickets for Broadway on Ticketmaster. So they were pricey, but weren't what the resale prices were. So like after that, I was like, oh, I can't wait. Like, after he did Western Stars, I was like, oh, they're asking another tour soon. And unfortunately, that's been delayed. So, but
that's
I
great.
have a good friend who lives in San Antonio, and I'm trying to get him and Bruce into Bruce. So if you're ever at a San Antonio concert,
there you go. We'll have to figure that out. Absolutely.
I'll let you know. And yeah,
I love that.
I know that's pretty far from Dallas.
Yeah, but hey, if we get for Bruce, there we go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
That is great. Thank you. So if someone wants to reach you, how can they, Timothy?
Twitter's probably best. So my handle is @tburger, spelled like the food, 97.
Okay.
And yeah, would love to hear if anyone has any thoughts or disagrees with my take on the Mary question.
No.
I'm open to criticism.
Very
I have
nice.
a thick skin.
You know what? I would love to have your uncles on with you and kind of share some stories about helping you grow up and everything. So reach out to them and say, hey, we should do this again. That'd be fun.
No, because we did at so I guess another Aunt Lori story. At her birthday party a couple of years ago, we all did everyone wrote down their top 10 and we all went around and shared. So that was a really fun night.
Oh, that sounds
I'm sure
great.
I'll definitely text around and see whoever's interested. And I'm sure I could rally a contingent to come on.
That would be kind of fun. That'd be great. Coming up, I don't know when this will be out because I try to record in advance, but I've already got like 4 or 5 friendship episodes booked for March. I've been able to reach out through the internet and ask people that became friends through Bruce or have stayed friends through Bruce. And I've gotten like 4 or 5 episodes of people. Like I had 2 guys that went to summer camp together. And then after college, they refound each other and became friends, and they go to shows all the time. And we've got, people that, that 2 people that, a lady that have never gone to show together, but they're both involved politically with fighting hunger. And so they would meet at conferences and like, oh, you like Bruce? I like Bruce. And then bonded this friendship. So that would be cool to do a family podcast. I'd love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll text everyone. Yeah.
All right, sounds great. All right, Timothy, thank you. This was great. I really appreciate your time. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, it was great being on. Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, this was a great time. Thank you.
All right, listeners, you stay safe. Remember to social distance. Remember to wash your hands. Remember to wear an effing mask. Let's all be good to each other because that's the only way we're going to get through this. And for now, take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at SetListingBruce, and my personal Twitter is at JesseJacksonDFW. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.